Gospel Tangents is supported by users like you. Please support us at gospeltangents.com or on Patreon. Says we are live, so welcome everybody to this spur of the moment Gospel Tangents live. We'll find out who's the night owls. This is a late night thing. I've done a lot of Easter visits this week to different locations, and I wanted to share with y'all some of my my visits, and I had a little PowerPoint presentation here. It looks like somebody's listening, so go ahead and tell me who you are, where you're watching from, and this is exciting. So welcome everybody. And if you're watching this later, this is kind of a cross between Gospel Tangents Live and just a live stream. Terry Davey, hi y'all. Terry, where are you watching from? You're on YouTube, it looks like. I'm gonna get my slideshow ready here. So welcome, Terry. I think I'm gonna be ready here. Here we go. I'm gonna from Watertown, New York. Oh, you're up really late. You're clearly a night owl here. So very good. Well, I'm gonna share my screen here, hopefully. All right. Oh, we've got more people here. So I'm just sharing here. So if you're new or if you're just watching, just put in the comments where you're watching from. And I'm excited to do this live stream. Y'all are night owls too. So I had a very busy week with Easter services. I was invited back to Centennial Park. Apparently I didn't wear out my welcome there. So they invited me back. And so I wanted to share, I've got some videos here. I sure hope it's going to work. In fact, we'll have to test that here in just a second. I've got some videos that hopefully the sound will work this time. And anyway, so I did that on, let's see, the week before Easter is called, so with the triumphal entry, what's that called? Anyway, I can't remember. I had it on the top of my head and I lost it. So they call that, whatever they call that. And then on Good Friday, I went to the Mesa Easter Pageant. So anyway, I just thought I would share. I thought I'd go kind of in chronological order. I also, just so you know, attended the Mormon Social Science Association meetings in St. George the day before I went to Centennial Park. And the day after Mesa Easter Pageant, I went to the, it was a Mormon Studies conference at Claremont. I didn't put any pictures in here, but I might talk about that another time. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to go to the next slide. So we've got Terry Davey from Watertown, New York. Welcome. And JSITHG, favorite YouTube channel from California. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Mossy Man, God bless. Los Angeles, South Bay. Did you go to the Claremont, Mossy Man? Let me know. David Nielsen from Malad, Idaho. David, so good to see you. I'm glad you're here. There's actually, we went through the line of succession, and I have a slide here coming up. And it will be interesting because your line was different than Centennial Park line in some interesting ways. We have to be a nerd to know about that. But anyway, that was a lot of fun. So we'll be talking about that. So good to see you, David. PJOBKK, Peter J from San Francisco. Happy Easter, everyone. Thank you, Peter. Happy Easter to you. Massima, no. Oh, you didn't go? That's a bummer. The weather was fantastic in Southern California, as it usually is. And JSITHG, David, I loved your episode. I loved it too, and I think it's great. And it's not even over yet. And I shouldn't be interrupting it, but I felt like it's an Easter thing, and I gotta, today's Easter. We've still got, at least in Utah, 3 more hours left of Easter. And I wanted to get this up on Easter Sunday since I've been doing a lot of Easter stuff. So I'm glad all of you are night owls, and you're staying up here. So all right, and then really quickly, nobody said anything about the sound, so I guess that means you heard all that really loud car noise. normally I would run that through a processor and it would sound better, but I'm barely making it into Easter here, so I'm gonna assume that you guys can hear that. So post a quick comment if you didn't hear it, but here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. No car noise at all? Really? I can hear a ton of car noise, so it was really loud. Anyway, I normally filter that out. I've got some programs that will do that. But anyway, here we go. Glad to hear. So here we Okay, everybody. This is Les St. George. I'm on my way to the Easter service in Centennial Park. And so probably a lot of wind. I got the windows open. It's much warmer. Today is April 13th. And so I'm on my way to drive. It's probably another about 40 minutes to Centennial Park, I think. So anyway, just thought I would share. Just turned off I-15, and this is the road to Hurricane. All right, David from Malad, welcome. Okay, so we'll keep going here. I think this is actually a high school, but that they use for church. And well, I'll tell you what I thought, but this is an hour before church. Look at the parking lot. That's not a typical parking lot. I'm here an hour early, and look at all the cars that are already here in the parking lot an hour early. This is crazy to me. Okay, so yeah, really early. People get there early. The funny thing is, they had actually chairs out in the halls. They were having a special service. Let's see, how do I go to the next screen? Why is it not going? There we go. All right, here I am. This is where they meet for church. I think it's a high school. And we're going here for Easter service. All right. I don't know, that was that great. I didn't really have a chance to go through these. All right. So they have a special Easter service. This was actually the week before Easter, Triumphal Entry Day. I cannot remember what that's called. But at any rate, it was about a 2-hour, 2.5-hour service, if I remember right. Mostly, like last time, and I'm knowing names now, it was John Timpson. He is the president leader. I'm not exactly sure the right term. We'll talk about that here in a minute because I think on the next slide. But so yeah, so he was the conductor of the meeting and he welcomed everybody, and then they had just the choir pretty much sang. I mean, they would have a kind of a speaker in between numbers that would talk about the life of Jesus and that sort of a thing in between. So it was very different than at the previous meeting where we he President Timpson, I guess I don't know what to call him, Elder Timpson, whatever he goes, John, whatever you want to say. The leader would just pick on people at random to speak. This was a produced program. The choir was just amazing. They've got a huge, great choir, and they were on the stand. And then, so here's the funny thing: I was an hour early, and it's not really a gym, but I was in the overflow section an hour early, and J. Dot Hammond had saved me a seat, and that was the best seat we could get an hour early. And I also ran into Tom Bennett. In fact, I think while I was probably taking this photo that you can see on the screen here, um, he said he saw me and he thought, "What's Rick doing here?" So that was pretty funny because I saw Tom inside the building. I was like, "Hey, Tom," and so that was very cool. Um, so anyway, wonderful service. The music was amazing. I mean, well, I'm not a what do you call it, a music person, but they sounded amazing to me, like tabernacle choir quality. They also had a youth choir apparently on the balcony that, from my vantage point, I couldn't see, but I could see the director was turning, and his name was Hammond as well. He was, um, I think, Jadon's uncle. So anyway, it's just really a great service, especially if you really enjoy choir music. It was fantastic, and so that was great. Um, Wanted to talk a little bit about. So this one actually, I guess you could call it a sacrament meeting because they did pass the sacrament. Um, so typically, for those of you who aren't LDS, typically 2 to 4 priests get up. They're usually 16 to 18 years old, and they bless the sacrament and break the bread and everything for the congregation. And then they have usually about, depending on how big the ward is or the branch, 4 to 8, um, usually deacons and teachers usually, although priests can do as well, pass the sacrament to the congregation. Well, so it was very interesting with this because, and I forgot to ask Jada how many people were there. It was probably 800 at least. It was very large. And so because it was such a large congregation, they actually had 2 of those long tables for the sacrament, and they had about 2 dozen missionaries, white shirts and ties and dark suits that, that got up to break the bread, and so that was unusual. Number 1, I mean, they had those big, long tables, um, just so that they could fit 24 people around them, and then, they did so the interesting thing, in the old days of the LDS Church, like the early 19 I would say yeah, up through the 1920s, the priests would actually raise their right arm to the square um, as they blessed the, sacrament, but, and so so they picked on one of the missionaries to bless the sacrament, and he raised his right arm to the square. So that just, I mean, I wasn't around in the 1920s, but I was aware of it, so it kind of brought me back to there. But yeah, they had about 2 dozen of the elders there that all broke the bread. I'm sure a priest could have. I think one of the unusual things, especially when we compare Centennial Park to Nielsen Naylor, you know, if you're still watching the interview, I'm going to have part 5. And by the way, you need to sign up for the newsletter because that one, I'll send the secret link for the last part of the conversation. But I also do a trip out to the Nielsen Naylor Church, and so make sure you sign up for the newsletter. Um, but David said that in Nielsen Naylor they pass the sacrament once a month, and in Centennial Park they only do it once a year. And I found out that typically they do the sacrament at home. And Brother Timpson, um, he had learned apparently that there was I want to say a 20-year-old woman in the ward or congregation, and she had never partaken of the sacrament. And he was like, "What, really?" And so I guess on Easter Sunday they make us, or I mean, this was the week before Easter Sunday, but it was their Easter service in Arizona, and I don't know. It would be great if Jay Daunt was on to let me know if they had another one up, and because basically Centennial Park every other week they meet in Arizona, and then on the opposite weeks they meet in Salt Lake. And so anyway, so that was really interesting. But so they only do sacrament once a year for the congregation, although the 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 families are expected to do that on their own. So that was interesting. I noticed a couple of older men that were kind of like supervisors that were kind of making sure that everybody got the bread and everybody got the water. Um, and so that was very interesting. So I got to be part of that. They let me know. I think because I'm LDS that I was welcome to participate in the sacrament, so that was interesting. And but they weren't like checking, like the Bickertonites. I think when you attend a Bickertonite service, and because they pass sacrament, I think every week that I've been there. Um, like when they come out to Utah, like once a quarter, they usually meet at the Marriott Hotel in Murray, and they make an announcement. We're only going to pass this to people that are members of our congregation, and they know who they are, and so they won't even offer it to anybody else. But with Centennial Park, they just offered it to everybody. So I guess you'd call that an open communion, because obviously they didn't know who I was. So anyway, that was interesting. It's Palm Sunday. I have it on my slide. Couldn't remember what it was called. Palm Sunday. I don't know why that was so hard for me. So it was fun. It was a very interesting, very spiritual Palm Sunday service. Um, And so that was very interesting. So the cool thing was afterwards, I got a photo of their line of succession, and, I guess it's gonna be in the next episode with David Nielsen. Well, I didn't talk about it with David, but I went on a tour of the Nielsen Naylor Church, and I remember, for those of you who aren't watching, Nielsen Naylor and Centennial Park both come from, FLDS, and so there were some differences between their lines that and I'll go through these in just a minute, that I was really surprised about, so I found that really interesting. And maybe, I don't know, well, I mean, I don't think they're missing anybody, but anyway, first 4 would align with the LDS: Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff. They're along the top row there, and so that's where Centennial Park makes a break with the LDS Church, and so the next 5 would be common with all. I don't want to say all fundamentalists, because I found out that the LeBarons have a different line because they go back to Benjamin F. Johnson, and I don't know any LeBarons. So if there are any LeBarons out there, please email me, send me an email, gospeltangents@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to you. And I think there might have been one other one that was different. But anyway, so the first 4, same with the LDS Church. Number 5, we go to John Woolley, and then his son, Lauren Woolley, is number 6. And then J. Leslie Broadbent, number 7. Number 8 is John Y. Barlow, and then number 9 is Joseph Musser. Now, Christina Rossetti wrote the biography of Joseph Musser, so I found it interesting. The Centennial Park would still include Musser, because Musser was where the split happened, where the what became the AUB split with, and so they go off with Allred. Why am I not remembering his first name? Reuel Allred, and so that's so. Joseph Musser is where the AUB split off and go through their line, and so I would assume, although I didn't go into this kind of detail with Josh Thompson from the AUB, but I would assume that these first 9 would be similar in AUB and FLDS, Centennial Park, Nielsen Naylor. Now, this is where there's some changes here, but the Centennial Park line of succession is Charles Zitting, and then LeGrand Woolley, Lewis Kelch, and Leroy Johnson. And so now I remember, and I don't have this off the top of my head, Leroy Johnson is where the split between Centennial Park and Nielsen Naylor happened. At least that's my understanding, I believe. And so that was the interesting thing. When I went to, so there's a preview of my tangent trips on the next episode. And by the way, my friend Amanda said I should call it Going on a Tangent instead of Tangent Trips. Let me know if you like, which one you like better in the comments. I like them both. I don't know. My only concern is I go on lots of tangents, and so I don't know if people would know, is this like a tangent trip, or is this just Rick going on a tangent? But anyway, so let me know. But I remember Alma Nielsen gave me a tour, and you'll see that in the next episode if you're signed up for the newsletter, that they had Rulin Jeffs on there. And I believe he was the one after Leroy Johnson. And so, David, you can correct me if I'm wrong, right or wrong on that. But I believe that's what happened, and you'll see that in the next episode. And so that's why I wanted to spend some time here. As David mentioned, when Leroy Johnson was in charge of the FLDS church, and then he was the one that kicked off J. Marion Hammond and Alma Timpson. And so that's what formed Centennial Park, those 2 brothers, Marion Hammond and Alma Timpson. And then then Hammond died around 1988, I believe that's the right year, and so Alma Timpson was alone, and then he called Frank Naylor to be on the council. So Frank Naylor and Alma Timpson, and for that matter, Marion Hammond, they were the 3/2 because Hammond died in '88. So Alma Timpson and Frank Naylor were the two council members for the for both groups at the same time. And then that's when David said that uh, there was a dispute about who should be the next ones. So for those of you who are in Centennial Park, um, in fact, the bottom right corner, you can see that John Timpson, he's the current leader. He was one of those called by Alma Timpson. So that John is Alma's son, and he's the current leader. And Frank Naylor disagreed. I think there was if I remember right, I think Claude Cowley was also called by Alma Timpson. And so Frank Naylor apparently disagreed with that. And so then he started what was called the Naylor Group. And so and I hope it's Frank Naylor. That was what my memory was. Hopefully I don't have that name wrong. I'm sorry if I do. Uh, he was the only apostle or council member for the Naylor Group, and originally it was just called the Naylor Group. And then he went up to a cabin to pray and get some more um, some revelation and guidance on who should be next council members, and he died, unfortunately. So Frank Naylor had previously called Ivan Nielsen. David, please correct me if I'm making any mistakes, but I'm doing this from memory, so I think I'm right. I hope I'm right. Ivan Nielsen was kind of the bishop, and so then that's when David talked about how. So that's why it's called Nielsen Naylor. At least that's my understanding, because Naylor died, so he was the last apostle in the Nielsen Naylor group, and so Nielsen became the bishop. Ivan Nielsen, I think his name is, and I think he's David's grandfather, and probably Alma's too. I don't know, I don't know, David. You'll have to tell me how Alma's related to you. I'm pretty sure you're related. And uh, so anyway, that's why it's called the Nielsen Naylor Group. So Alma Timpson ordained John Timpson, who's the bottom right, and it's funny because if you look at this bottom right picture, John, that's an old picture. He looks doesn't have as dark of hair as he does in that picture anymore. John is a hoot, that's for sure. All right, so I'll recap again, and I'm sorry I wasn't sharing, and I thought I was. Top four, all the same as LDS: Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff. Then we get into the combined fundamentalist group. So this would be kind of AUB and FLDS. You've got John Woolley, and then Lauren Woolley, J. Leslie Broadbent, John Y. Barlow, and then Joseph Musser. And so Musser is where the split happened between FLDS and AUB, what became the FLDS and AUB around 1951, 53, somewhere around there. And then in Centennial Park, we have Charles Zitting. I lost my mouse here. Charles Zitting, Grand Woolley, Lewis Kelch, and then Leroy Johnson. And then Leroy Johnson kicked off J. Marion Hammond and Alma Timpson, who kind of started Centennial Park. Hammond died in about 88, I believe. And then so Timpson called Frank Naylor. And so, because I remember, so Frank's not pictured here. And Frank and Alma had a dispute over who should be the next ones. And so Naylor started the Nielsen Naylor Group. And then Alma Timpson ordained John Timpson, his son, who's next to him here. And that's an old photo. Like I said, he's not as dark haired as he is in that picture. And Claude Cowley, who I think is kind of the unofficial, or maybe he's the official church historian. So anyway, so I just wanted to share that because I just remember after Leroy Johnson, let's see, where is Leroy here? I think that's Leroy Johnson there. Um, that's when Alma and Marion Hammond split off, but the Nielsen Naylor also had included Rulin Jeffs in there, so I was surprised to see that. So anyway, yeah. So here I'll stop sharing for just a minute. I'm going to pop back and see if there's any more. Still good info. Thank you. All right. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. I was excited to go to the service, and so that was a lot of fun. Now we will go to the Mesa Easter Pageant, and so hopefully I will start sharing my screen again. I always like to wait till that, so then I know I'm sharing. All right. And so on Friday, I flew down. I remember I landed about 5:30, I think, if I remember right. And here I am at the airport. So I'm gonna take you along with me.
Hey, everybody. Good Friday to you all. That plane behind me is the plane to Phoenix, and hopefully I'm going to be on. Well, I should be on. I got a boarding pass. So going to the Easter pageant at the Mesa Temple this weekend. It's my first time, so I wanted to bring you along with me, and we're flying to Phoenix for the Mesa Temple pageant.
Okay, I have to tell you something about that guy that was behind me. So I was waiting for him to leave, and he never left. He just stood there, and I was like, "Well, I'm mostly blocking him." So, and I was talking quiet because I was in the airport trying to go to the next screen here. So anyway, so I flew down there and had a Uber driver basically take me to the temple. So this is the Mesa Temple. I am going to do not tonight, but another video on the Mesa Temple because there was some cool stuff, and I don't want to give it away, but there's some cool stuff about it. So anyway, I've just been dropped off at the temple here.
All right, I made it. I'm here in Mesa at the Mesa Temple. I just talked to Robert Messick on the phone, and he told me that there's going to be 10,000 people here. And he said, you better get there quick. So it's like 5 o'clock, I think, right now. And he also told me those clouds you see are unusual I guess that was the lift driver that told me that. Those clouds you see are helping keep the heat down. And so they're unusual for Arizona. So anyway, hopefully it'll be a lot of fun.
It's so funny to go to a place like that where you got palm trees because you don't have any palm trees in Utah, I'll tell you that. Okay. And so it was funny because I knew there was a visitor center and I was walking around and some of the actors were walking around. And it's funny because, well, this is a Roman soldier, but at the time I didn't know that. And I guessed wrong about what his thing was. This is just a super short video.
I think that's Captain Moroni right there. I'm guessing. Wish I would have gotten it sooner.
Not Captain Moroni. I was hoping, and then some other people came by. This is kind of covered up a little bit, but so this is some of the cast members. You can see another Roman soldier there, and some of the cast members, and turn around. So that was kind of fun. So once again, this was on Good Friday, and those were some of the pageant actors. Whoops, go to the next one. Okay. And so this is me. You'll notice it's funny because the weather was great until about 7:30, and then all of a sudden the wind kicked in, and there was a very kind of sprinkled a little bit on us, but the wind, it was kind of a cold wind, and I was like, I'm in Arizona, I'm not supposed to be cold. But anyway, we're getting ready for the pageant to start here.
Well, the sun went down and the wind kicked up, so that's kind of a bummer. But you can see the temple behind me, and then over here, well, behind all those lights is the stage there. And so it's about a little after 7. We're just waiting for the show to begin. Hopefully the rain stays away.
Yeah, it didn't stay away, unfortunately. Oh, Jared, good to see you. Jared's from Bountiful. I know him. And good to see you, Jared. Okay, so I took some photos. on the top left, if I remember right, so you've got the angels up on top of the stage. Oh, let me just mention this really quickly. Talked to some locals. This is, of course, my first time going to the Mesa pageant, and they said that the show had changed. I mean, it's about the life of Christ. I joked afterwards. I'm like, oh, it was just like the book. Um, but the music had changed. The music was fantastic. Like you could, if they were not professional singers and orchestra, and every time I hear horns, you can see here. Well, you can kind of see here. Oh, this is supposed to be from the current. No, from the current slide. Here, I'll make that bigger for you. You've got the trumpets there, and I think those were just props because they really did have trumpets, and so you can see how they light the stage. But this is a permanent stage, and I guess pre-COVID it was a temporary stage, and so you can see how beautiful the stage are and how many actors there are. Um, my wife was thinking about coming, but she thought it was a crazy trip, and it was crazy. Um, but over here in the bottom right, you've got Jesus walking on the water with Peter, and that story. And then I believe the red, if I remember right, that was kind of when Christ was getting ready to, or the trial and getting ready to die, and that kind of a thing. But yeah, it's a beautiful stage. Um, and anyway, so they said that the music and everything has changed. My wife asked me, and so I'll just mention this really quick, that uh, the asked how, like, compared to Manti. So one of the interesting things, if you've ever, of course, the Manti pageant is no more, and this is one of the few pageants left. Hill Cumorah pageant's no more. Pretty much it's Nauvoo, and this, I think, are the only pageants left in the church, which is kind of a bummer. But when you went to Manti, the narration sounded like it came from the 1950s because it probably did. I mean, just kind of had an old timey feel. Whereas this felt very, very modern. They had a great symphony band or symphony. Yeah, you call it a band, right? And the singers, I was so far back that I couldn't tell if they were lip syncing or not. Um, and maybe people know, I don't know. Um, but you could tell these were like professional singers. Like it was very contemporary music. The orchestra was fantastic and like really just well done. And it lasted about 70, 75 minutes or so. And they had 10,000 people there. I was like, wow, this is a big deal. And so anyway, that was a lot of fun. And I'm glad I went. I've wanted to go to this pageant. I mean, I've known about the pageant for at least 30 years and I've never gone. And so I was glad to go and share a few photos with there. And so there's David Messick. David, if you're watching this, thank you so much. I literally texted him at about, I think it was 3:30 or 4:30 and said, "Hey, I just landed." And he said, "Why don't you stay at my house?" Because I didn't know if I was going to stay in Phoenix or I was going to fly out to California, and I didn't make the flight. So David, thank you so much. I got to spend the night there at David's house, and he was a lifesaver. And he took me at a ridiculous hour in the morning so that I could make it out to California for the conference. So anyway, so that was that. I'm trying to decide. Let me stop sharing here. What time is it? It's getting late. Um, so if you, I mean, I kind of wanted to give a recap. I didn't want to stay up too late, and I especially know in Watertown it's very late. Um, I remember now. I remember last time. I'm trying to remember your name, uh, Terry Davy. This is not. You've been on this live before because you said Watertown was near Canada. I remember saying that. So anyway, um, I'll just kind of give a really brief recap of both conferences. So the day before the Centennial Park visit, I attended Mormon Social Science Association. Great for especially for math nerds. and it was pretty sparsely attended. There weren't a ton of people there, um, and I'll talk more about it. But it was social science. I thought Ryan Cragen was going to be there. Unfortunately, he wasn't there, but his um, co-author Rick Phillips presented, and he was funny. The weirdest thing about Rick Phillips, I'll just mention this really quick, is me and Rick Phillips grew up in the same neighborhood. He's a few years older than me, so we didn't go to high school together, and that's probably the reason why I didn't know who he was and he didn't know who I was. Like, we didn't overlap, but our younger brothers were like best friends. And so that was funny to put that together. So anyway, he kind of gave a little bit of a continuation on you. If you remember my Ryan Craig interview, we talked about his book Goodbye Religion, and Rick Phillips and Ryan Cragen are working on a new, I think, a new book. And I asked Rick to come on, but he was busy, so that was a bummer. Um, Also met a guy named Warner Woodworth, and the funniest thing was, so we went to dinner after with Stephanie Griswold and some other people. I don't remember them all, but Nancy Ross was there from Utah Tech, and and then Stephanie said, "Hey, there's a conference in California on Saturday," which I didn't know, and I was like, "Well, maybe I can go." And so I was crazy and did it. And so the conference with Matt Bowman, you saw the announcement last week. I mean, the weather in Claremont was just fantastic. It was just fantastic. But I was only there for, I think I landed at 10 a.m. The conference started at 10 a.m. or 9:30, I think. So I missed the beginning. And then I had to leave at 3 to catch my flight home because I didn't want to miss Easter. And anyway, and so I didn't get to edit. But anyway, so I did this super fast. But so that was cool. It was kind of religion and politics. No, excuse me, religion and business. Somebody, it was Shiloh. What's his name? Shiloh Logan. Is it? I think that's who it was. He said that he wants the next one to be on. Do I have that right, Jared? Shiloh Logan, right? I know Shiloh, especially by face, because we'd see each other at conferences. Shiloh's getting his PhD and from Claremont, and he was like, "I want the next one to be on religion and politics." That's why that popped in my head because I talked to Shiloh. And anyway, so that was super fun. Always super fun to get together with people and talked about religion and business. It was not live streamed. I talked to Matt Bowman, and he's like, "Yeah, we zoomed in a couple people, and I didn't think we could live stream and Zoom at the same time. Like, we didn't want to mess with it." Um, so Nate Oman actually zoomed into that, and he talked about some of the legal issues because he's a lawyer from, I want to say, North Carolina. I think that's right. So anyway, I mean, if you're a nerd like me and Matt, you'll nerd out on this stuff and you'll love it. And I just love the weather, and Matt gave me a free lunch, so it was. I flew into California, ate lunch, and flew home basically. so so it was a lot of fun. So anyway, I won't keep you too long on this. If you have any questions, let me know, or comments. But I'll probably do another video on the Mesa Temple because there was just some cool stuff about that, and and then maybe I'll go into a little bit more detail on the conferences. I don't know that anyway. So, but I'm glad you all are night owls. Thank you for tuning in, and I don't see any more questions, so I will let you all go to bed. And thanks for supporting Gospel Tangents. And remember, if you're not signed up for the newsletter and you want to see part 5 of the David Nielsen interview, sign up and I'll send you a secret link. So gospeltangents.com/newsletter. Oh, and I guess since I mentioned that, I will also mention I'm going to be giving away. Oh, the unfortunate thing, I think it's under my computer. Oh, no, it's not. Where is it? Somewhere around here. I have a book I'm going to be giving away of Matt Bowman's biography of Joseph Fielding Smith. should be near me. I don't know why it's not. So go to gospeltangents.com/contest. And at the conclusion of my Matt Bowman interview, I will be giving away a free copy. It's not going to be autographed because I left it home because I didn't put it in my bag right away. I left it home. So that's unfortunate. But anyway, yeah, gospeltangents.com/contest. You can win a biography of Joseph Fielding Smith and gospeltangents.com/newsletter to get the final part of our David Nielsen interview. So talk to you later. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I hope you to continue to enjoy Gospel Tangents. Consider becoming a Patreon or go to gospeltangents.com/shop, and you can get a cool tie, a hat, or even a nice mug. You can also get a sweatshirt. So check it out at gospeltangents.com/shop.